say thank you again for coming on, and hopefully we have a good time doing this. I got started, doing the podcast because I wanted to, talk to people and let them share their stories because I see people's stories and they sound amazing and just want them to put it out there and tell your side of it. And that's what I'm trying to do today. Uh, but I know that we went to high school together and everything, and I don't know you too well, but we all know each other from social media. We all grew up. Everyone's living their lives. And what I did see though from your social media is you got really into weightlifting, like competitive weightlifting, powerlifting.
Yes, so it's powerlifting. It's going to be 3 years in January
Oh
that I
wow.
got started. So I had been going to the gym. I think just see things you see like on Instagram and on Twitter. You're like, oh, I'm gonna try this. So I used to do that, and then I got into powerlifting 3 years ago. I competed once. I always tell myself I'm like a one-time person, just because school got in the way, work got in the way, but it helped me a lot. Like I love heavy weights and I love lifting heavy, so I just keep it going.
What was your transition to powerlifting? What got you to move to that way, to that side?
Actually, it was just someone kept asking me to join their gym at Iron Fitness, and at the end I kind of just caved in, and I was like, okay, cool. If I'm gonna get coached, I mean, why not? It's something I was already interested in. Like I had looked at things, but I didn't know much about it.
Were you working out
Just
before
because,
that?
yeah, I was. I was going to GB3, doing my own stuff. My brother had gotten me into it. My brother, cousin. So, like I said, little things that you just find to do once you think you know. Apparently, um, and so then when I got asked to join Iron Fit and be coached, I was just like, okay, why not? Something new, a new experience. If it's gonna help me, why not? So, go ahead. I think you were gonna ask something.
No, go ahead. I'm still listening. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right. So, yeah, so I started going there. I was being coached. I didn't think about competing until I think 2 months in. There was a competition, and I was just like, you know what? Fuck it, why not? Let's just do something out of this.
Did you
And
place?
yeah, I placed first. I have the medal somewhere around here. But there was no one really against me in my age range. So I guess it was just the first, just because I was there. But there was other girls there that were like a younger age range from me, but in my same weight class.
So in this sport, is there a lot of women? Per se?
Um, yes, there is. It's not a high. How do I explain it? It's not shown a lot. I think powerlift is really like minimized depending what community you get yourself into. Um, there's a lot of women that I actually follow like as an inspiration, to be as great as they are. They have like state, national competitions, world competitions. It's really like a neat thing to see and how the community actually comes together for something that is not really like portrayed out in the, I guess, sport community.
Well, I got really into powerlifting when I was in my early 20s, like 22, 23. Um, I was trying to get into it. I've always been a very skinny person and I've never been able to lift like very heavy, but I was super into it. I wanted to get into I followed all the big YouTubers at the time,
Yeah.
Max Tuning, Candido Training, the Barbell Brigade, all those. Like, everyone watches them, and I get inspired from that. But I did not see a lot of female
Yeah.
powerlifters at all, and so that's one thing. And I only followed the guys and everything, and I was trying to lift like them and trying to take all their suggestions, and but I never got coached or anything. But I fell
Mm-hmm.
out of it. I didn't take it serious. I was not able to progress as I wanted to, and I was also lazy too. So, but I kind of left that
Mm-hmm.
behind. But I do see people still taking it really serious, and those individuals that take it serious, they made a lot of personal gains and are actually still active, competing and doing well with COVID this year. Obviously a lot of competitions are not happening. But you said it changed your life. In what ways has it?
um, like you, it was really like strugglesome for me to gain weight. I was always like under 100 pounds for like, I think until even after we graduated high school. it was so just difficult for me to gain weight. And I think being like really scrawny and as a girl, it's like so much like, you know, you feel so self-conscious and you're just like, oh my god, I'm just so tiny. And powerlifting really helped that, just as like how I see myself, but also is such a big outlet for me.
Okay.
um I'm in my own world. Like once I start like, you know, like warming up and getting into my whatever lift I'm gonna do, I'm just in my own world. It helps me just escape from everything, you know, work wise, school wise. I'm currently going to school, and I feel like it's just been such a big stress lately. And powerlifting has been amazing. Just like I call it my own personal therapy.
I've had
So
a
it
hard
helps.
time. I had a hard time gaining weight as well. Like when I as well when I graduated high school, I stayed the same weight for a long time. Um,
Mhm.
I weighed like 130 to like 140 all the way up until I got into um, CECU East Bay. I remember going in
Mhm.
2015, 2016, and I was like 140 still, and I didn't gain any weight at all. Like I just couldn't put anything on. And then I remember I had a certain job where I was just delivering, and I went up to like 180, and I never was that heavy ever in my life. And I got sick. I had like a stomach issue, and I lost the weight, and I've never
Mhm.
gained it back. I got lucky. I don't know what what that was about, but I understand the struggle of trying to gain weight and trying to build muscle, and I know that insecurity. I used to work at a gym before too. When I first moved out here for college in the Bay Area, I worked at
Uh-huh.
a gym, Fitness 19, and you know, I got workout and everything, and that's when I was into powerlifting and trying all that stuff. But I was very insecure about because I couldn't lift heavy, and I wanted to show like people that I could lift, and I would wear baggy like sweatpants and sweaters and stuff because I was embarrassed in my body because I was so skinny, and I was really embarrassed in my body. And I know talk to other people that were like overweight and stuff, and they're going through the same thing, and it was weird. They might have been looking at me saying like, oh, that guy's lucky he's, you know, skinny or whatever, and I'm looking at them and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, they could lift so much weight. And like I don't know, I just felt that like just being really insecure about myself and everything, and not being able to be comfortable in a gym setting. That's one thing I did struggle with for a long time, and that's why I didn't like going to the gym. I had
Mhm.
got a membership at one of the gyms out here, and I remember at the end of the year it tells you how many times you went, and I only went like maybe less than 10 times.
It
And
keeps like that track.
I was like, oh yeah, I wasted so much money doing all that, and I'm just like, I was so pumped at the beginning, and I remember it's like, oh, it's not worth it at all. Like, why did I even get a gym membership? I always had excuses for everything. I remember one
Yeah.
time I went into the gym and I went to go like warm up, and I was on one of those bikes, and I slipped and I fell, and like a couple people saw, and I got up and left. Like I just left out the gym. I was like, I'm not doing this no more. It was
I
embarrassing.
feel like it's just so intimidating sometimes. Like just the gym in general, it can be really intimidating. I know I've asked like a couple girls like, hey, like why don't you go or stuff like that. And like, you know, you should try like joining, and it's like I always get the same answer just because it's intimidating. I think sometimes when you don't know or like you feel like you're gonna be judged, because I felt like that's how I was at the beginning all the time. Still feel this way. Where I'm like, oh, am I still doing this right? I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and I still feel like insecure. I'm doing what I'm supposed to correctly.
The problem I had at the gym too was that a lot of people get like clicky, and people would
Mm-hmm.
surround themselves. Like I would try to go squat, and then there'll be like a group of like 4 or 5 people cycling in and out of the squat rack, and they're all just like hogging it. Especially at the smaller gyms, being here in the city, everything's smaller,
Yeah.
and so like I deal with anxiety, and so like if I don't feel comfortable doing something, I won't do it. And just being in a situation where it's like a packed place and not have room to do it, and also I'm thinking everyone's looking at me while I'm working out and like judging me at the same time. And I realize they don't care, you know, like later on I had to realize it's like they don't care. They're worried about themselves and their own lives. But at that moment, I couldn't get anything because I was worried, like, oh, they're looking at my form. They're thinking maybe could tell that I'm cheating right here. Maybe they could tell that I'm weak or whatever it might be. It was horrible. I did not like that feeling at all. And then dealing with that type of anxiety that I deal with, I don't like being in places that make me feel uncomfortable, like especially like large crowds and stuff like that. Like this COVID thing, a lot of people are kind of like sad because they can't be around large crowds, and I'm like, that's fine with me. Like I don't like being around a lot of people. It kind of like I had a hard time learning when I moved out here, The
Mhm.
first time I ever got into the bus, because the buses here were packed, and I'd never been in like city buses before. I had to get off. I remember I panicked and I got off the bus and I was like, "Oh, what the heck?" And I remember my
And I
girlfriend
think
like getting mad
especially
at
since
me.
you came from like a small town, it makes it worse.
Oh yeah, we don't even have buses there. Like I mean, we took buses to school, but like they're not even still there. Those were not even packed. Like these were like just like you're packed like next to each other, right on each other. Everyone's breathing on each other. Like it was crazy, and just being that claustrophobic feeling and going on the BART because there's like a BART that goes underneath the water, and it's the first
Uh-huh.
time in there, I almost had a panic attack.
Oh.
It was bad. But I saw on social media that you suffer from anxiety as well.
I do. Very similar to you. I get like really anxious with like big crowds. I have like this phobia, like I guess not a phobia, but I'm so scared of going anywhere alone. I have to have someone with me, even like if they're just gonna be there, not looking at the same stuff I am, but I need someone there with
Hmm.
me. Um, so I do suffer from that, like you similarly with COVID. This is just like heaven to me, not dealing with like a lot of people and stuff like that. Even like at the gym, I feel like some people think I'm so antisocial because I don't want to talk to a lot of people, but I like to keep to myself. Like I don't have a workout partner for that same reason. Um,
Wow.
just because I'll keep to myself and I'll do what I need to do. Um, I'll talk to people, like if they'll talk to me or I'll talk to them and stuff like that. But majority of the time, I'm just to myself doing what I need to do.
Yeah, the type of anxiety that I get is like the large crowds and everything. I had to get used to that. Being in the city has helped me overcome a lot of that. Like I don't get
Mm-hmm.
it. I don't get it as much as I used to before. Like I could be around like larger crowds and be okay. I just don't like being in places where I feel uncomfortable or I don't know, and that caused me a lot of
Yeah.
anxiety. Lately, like the past couple of months, I've been just having like panic attacks out of nowhere. Like I'll be driving and I'm like I don't people don't understand if they never had anxiety, if they never had a panic attack before. They don't understand like the crippling feeling you get from it. Like the other day I was driving to work and I work across the Golden Gate Bridge and I was on my way and I was starting to have a panic attack and I don't even know like what was causing it. So like I had to take the last exit and like rush home to like regroup and then I was able to go and like things like that are happening. I had to switch to decaf coffee because regular coffee was giving me anxiety attacks. I My girlfriend messed up one time. She ordered coffee and she knows I drink decaf and I usually the decaf at Starbucks whatever it had to be the
Mm-hmm.
espresso or they do espresso decaf shot whatever. But she got a
Mm-hmm.
regular one and I had drank most of it while I was like doing something. And then she
Oh
was like, "Oh
no.
no, it's regular." And I just remember like the crippling, like that feeling coming over me, like I already know what's gonna happen. And I just remember getting like so sweaty, and maybe it's just a mental thing for me. And I just remember getting like I was when it happened, it lasted like maybe an hour, and like the rest of the day, I felt so tired, like exhausted from
Mm-hmm.
it. And it's like I hate that feeling so much.
I always envy people who can drink coffee just because I'm in that similar situation. I like sometimes when I'm really, really craving it, I make a joke where I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a shot of anxiety just because it tastes so good, but it messes me up too. Like, oh, my heart will be racing so fast. I feel like I can't even concentrate. I feel like I can't breathe. Um, yeah, I understand.
That
I've had those similar situations and at work, which is worse.
oh yeah, I haven't had any at work, luckily, because of the type of work I do. I can't
Mm-hmm.
be the one freaking out because I'm dealing with a lot of people that are work in the mental health field, the substance abuse
Mm-hmm.
field, and so like doing that, I have to be strong for them. So that kind of helps me. I just have it in moments where I don't think I should. Like I'll be relaxing. We'll be driving down the coast or something out here, and it just hits out of nowhere, and I don't know what causes it. I might have. I'm like, did I have something with caffeine? Am I going through my head?
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a reason why I can't smoke weed. Like I can't do it because it gives me so much bad anxiety.
Yeah.
I just remember one time we're going down the Pacific coast and I only had like a little bit of it, and I just remember having to pull off the road. Like I pull off the road and it was like a full on like
Panic
hyperventilating.
attack.
I'm like, what the heck? And then I realized like I like calmed down and I was like, I'm okay. I'm not gonna die. I'm fine. I'm good, and we went on our day, and everything was fine. But it's like little things like that, like really,
Mhm.
really, um, if you never experienced it, it takes you to another place that I don't wish anyone to go to. But similar, have you worked with people that suffer from anxiety?
Yes, I was currently working at a place for 5 years where we provide like parenting services. And a majority of those people, do suffer from anxiety. And I feel like anxiety is very broad just because everyone has like a different level or something that, triggers it depending or like, which how you were sharing, it just happens out of nowhere. So I think while working with them, I wouldn't practice what I would preach all the time. And, I would give them all these tools, but it would take a lot for me to even use them on myself because I'd be like,
Yeah,
no, it's not gonna work, or no, like it just won't work for me. But I would like push in and be like, you guys can do this, you got this. I would be encouraging them, but I wouldn't like do that to myself. Like I felt hard if I tried to do that to myself. It was just difficult.
yeah. I honestly the same. Like I felt like an expert because like I suffer from it, so like I knew
Yeah.
exactly how to handle the situation and be that calming presence for people and help them get through it. I
Hmm.
worked with a lot of people that were on benzodiazepines, which help
Yeah.
with the anxiety and depression and all that stuff. Um, and that's good and all, but it makes them like kind of like a zombie type. I don't know how to explain it. Like it makes them like not themselves. It just takes them to a spot where they kind of like blank out. Like it calms them down to like a level where
Yeah.
like it's very weird. And I never wanted to take medication for that. I wanted to learn how to deal with my own
Hmm.
anxiety. I feel like I have general anxiety. Like a lot of people have general anxiety,
Yeah.
but severity wise, I don't know where my sometimes it's severe, sometimes it's like nothing. But taking medication for it's another level, and I thought about that, but I don't want to get to that point because I've seen people on medication for anxiety, and it's like never. It just feels like it just takes them to a different place, and it's not themselves. I
I
don't know
think
if you
that
thought about it for yourself.
I have just recently, around like I think mid COVID, like around August, July, my anxiety was horrible, especially like around September and stuff. It was just really, really bad. And I thought about it and I was like, maybe I really need to see someone. Maybe I need to get like something prescribed because it's just something I couldn't control. Um, but I'm getting my degree in like the mental health area with social work and stuff, and I read a lot about that. And so reading into what the effects are and watching videos and watching clients and stuff like that, I was just like, no, I don't want that for myself. And I think that's when I was like really drifting from like even lifting. Like there was times where I just didn't want to go to the gym where I was just like, no, I'm not feeling it today. I would go
Mm.
like 2 times or 3 times, just be like, okay, whatever, I just don't want to go. And I try to bring myself back to it a little more, like focus on it more because I have been so inconsistent this past year. Um, and lately, now that I've been going through it, doing like more of it, it has helped me a little more. But also like trying to take time for myself, which I rarely used to do. I thought, the gym was self care. I'm like, no, there's other self care that I need.
Yeah.
And I mean, reading helps me. I love to read. And so just like reading different books and poems and stuff like that
What
kind of
have you been
just
reading lately?
I got the Rupi Kaur's last poem. I love her poems. I relate so much to them. I feel like when I read them, it's like I'm reading a story as she's saying it to me, and I relate so much to it that I just take time to like even journal with it. Like as I'm reading, I'm like, oh my god, I'm just feeling the same way, and I just actually picked up journaling, and that has helped a little more. So I'm just trying little bits and pieces here and there to see. I mean, whatever I would recommend to my clients, I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to try it.
So I work with a or my old place I worked at a treatment center. I worked with a psychologist, and
Mm-hmm.
he was a real good friend of mine, and working there with him, he knew right away. He was like, "You suffer from general anxiety." He was like,
Uh-huh.
he could just tell right away. He was just telling me and talking about it, and he himself, I know he suffered from stuff too. Even though he was like a psychologist, he suffered from it as
Yeah.
well. But he was like, you gotta find what helps you, like other than what you do. You have to go out there and find an outlet
Mm-hmm.
to do that, and like you said, journaling, you're trying different things. For me, what really has helped lately is going fishing. Like getting back into
Mm.
that has really calmed me
I see
down a
that you
lot.
do that a lot. Fishing and golfing, right?
No, I just do fishing. I don't do the
Fishing?
golfing. Yeah, I couldn't even hit a baseball. I can't I can't hit the golf ball. I mean, I would try with my buddies, but I haven't went yet. But fishing has really helped. It's just like really calming because there's a lot of aspects to it, like the technical part, and then it's really hard. It's really difficult to actually catch fish. Like if you actually go out there, it's like I've been so many times where I haven't caught nothing. But just the enjoyment of just
Uh-huh.
catching something, it just triggers something in you. I don't know what it is. It's like a reaction you get. It's like the
Mhm.
happiness you get when you catch something. And I like to practice catch and release and let it go and find find a new one. Uh, that has helped. Also, talking about it more, letting
Mhm.
know. I didn't talk to anyone about what I was dealing with. Never. Like I followed it in. I've never even talked to my friends about having anxiety. I've never talked to like my family members or anything. Only my
Mhm.
girlfriend and my coworkers then and stuff like that. I try to deal with it on my own, rather than talking about it and making it known. Because I don't like people knowing what's going on with me. But that was my part of my issue is not reaching out when I should, and also trying to find, like you said, different outlets. I don't. I'm not a big time reader because
Mhm.
I deal with ADHD and all that stuff, and so like I get sidetracked all the time, and it is really difficult for me to finish books. But I do a lot
Yeah.
of audiobooks. So I do Audible. Like
Oh.
yeah, so I drive all a lot. I deliver here in the city as part of like my other
Mhm.
side jobs that I do here, and so I'm constantly on the road and I'm listening all the time, and I love listening to different books, and they do give you different perspectives on life, and they
Mhm.
you when you come across something that you hear or read, it just there's a certain like sentences or paragraphs that could change your outlook on a lot of things. One book in particular that stood out to me lately was A Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl.
Mhm.
It was about I think he was a psychologist. He was a psychologist that was in the camps in, I believe, in Germany. He was one of the people
Okay.
that they had took and put in one of those concentration camps, and he talked about finding the meaning in the little things that he had in life at that point of time, and it breaks it down very simplistic, but it just made me realize like we have all this stuff around us, and we're still unhappy about things. You know, we might be in debt, we might
Mhm.
not, whatever it might be, right? But we still have a roof over our head. We live in probably one of the richest countries in the world. We live in the richest state in our country. We're in a good place. Doesn't mean everything's perfect, but for some reason we're still very unhappy about a lot of things, and that can be contributed to social media, that can be contributed to
Yep.
I the American dream or the idealism of being here and what it means to be successful and to be happy, and our culture here about like grinding all the time, working like long
Yeah.
hours. And I've known I put in, like there was days where it was normal for me to go to work at 8 and get home like at 10, 11 o'clock, and I would do that a lot, and it was just part of working here in the city. Everyone's working how you have
Mhm.
to. It's very expensive here, but I realize a lot of that takes a toll on you, and I could see why that might trigger a lot of anxiety in me, and why
Mhm.
it makes people unhappy, and it's a give and take.
I think we're never really, or will never really be satisfied. I know even like when we go to visit in Mexico and my family and stuff, I'm just like, oh my god, they're just so happy with like the simplest of things. Like it can be something so small and they're just excited. And right, I feel like when I come back, I'm just like, it's never the same, never the same. We always want more and more and more.
I mean, it's not a bad thing either. It's like we have access here. We have the ability to
Mhm.
achieve more. We have the ability to expand and work as hard as we could, and the possibilities are endless. Especially when your family immigrates here to
Yep.
the United States. And I've never been to Mexico personally. I've tried to go a couple times, and every time I've tried,
Mhm.
something's happened. Like we got a resort in, I
Mhm.
think, Cabo or something, and then a hurricane hit, so I got canceled. And then this
Oh.
last time we're scheduled to go, and then COVID happened, and it just all kinds of little things like that because I've always wanted to
Mhm.
visit Mexico. But my father immigrated from Mexico, so he came
Okay.
from Nayarit, or I'm not really good at Spanish.
Oh,
I'm
been
not.
there before. That's
Yeah.
where I'm from.
Okay. Yeah. So my grandpa's from born and raised out there in that coastal state. Um,
Mhm.
my dad came when he was little. He was like 2 years old, and my dad's never been back. I mean, he's been deported a couple times, but he find his way back. But he doesn't associate that much with Mexico because he's
Mhm.
been born here and he's Americanized as can be. And another thing, reason why he can't go back is he's not a citizen, and
Mhm.
so I struggle with that because I would love to go out and visit where my family came from, but I can't go with my father because he's not able to go back and forth. But
Yeah.
also, I worry about him a lot because I'm always thinking like, what happens? What happens if he gets picked up or whatever it might be? And I really don't talk to anyone about that at all either. It's something that I
Mhm.
deal with by myself because not a lot of people are in that similar situation that I know, and that feeling sometimes it sucks. Like it's like you want to do things, and now that they're putting in that real ID card, he's not going to be able to fly anymore. Things like that. It's just it's a struggle, and it's unfair because he was too old to apply for DACA at the time,
Mhm.
and he's pretty much been here his whole life, but he's never going to be able to become a citizen. Um, and that's something that I don't know if I could ever help him with. But he doesn't really talk about it much because he knows he's like, what can I do? He's still
Mhm.
out here and still trying to live his life and support and provide for my younger siblings.
And I think just coming from that background, it's really difficult. I mean, I relate to your dad. Um, I recently became a citizen this beginning of the year, and it's something my family and I struggled for so long. Um, like your dad, I came. My parents brought me here when I was 6 months. I basically always feel like I'm more from here than I'm from there. I'm
Yeah.
like, I was raised here. That English was my first language. Like, totally different. Um, I didn't find out. I think my parents just kept it in so much because of that fear. You have that fear of deportation. You have that fear of what people are going to do. I remember when we were younger, we used to live. I used to live in Nevada for like 12 years. Um, we lived in the middle of nowhere, just this farm out, just way out there. And I faintly remember, being 2 or 3, and my parents being like, "We have to hide. We have to hide." Why? Because it was ice. So I didn't know much about it back then, but I knew we had to hide. Right? That's like all you know. And my parents didn't really tell me that I didn't have that I wasn't legal until I was 16, and that's because I wanted to go on a trip to Mexico with my friend.
Oh
And
wow.
they're like, yeah, I was 15. Like, I knew I was born there. Like, I knew all these things. I don't know how naive I was that I was like, oh, I didn't really look into the fact that, I couldn't
Were
go
you the
out.
only one out of your siblings born in Mexico?
Yes, I was
Oh
the
wow.
only one. I have two siblings, two brothers actually. So they were born in Nevada. I was the only one that was born in Mexico. My dad came here first. So he had married my mom and everything. Then he came here. My mom stayed over there. She was pregnant with me. Had me 3 months later or so. My dad went back, and then he was like, "All right, we're leaving," and he brought us here when I was 6 months old or so. Yeah, so I'm like the only one.
So when you found out when you're 16, like, what was that feeling like?
Oh, I cried. I didn't. I was just like, "What the hell? What do you mean you're telling me that? I can't go." I was just super psyched that, oh cool, like they had kind of told me like, well, maybe we'll see, but I don't think they knew how to tell their daughter like, hey, this is what's going on. I actually had to sit down, like they sat me down, they laid it all out to me. I had an idea, I knew my parents didn't have their documents and stuff. I guess they just hid it so well that they didn't want to tell me. So I remember being in high school when that happened, and then my dad met another person, and kind of helped us get through the process of getting our documents and stuff.
So how long did it take for you from the age of 16 to now, like over 10 years to become a citizen?
Yes.
Is that
So
process
it
really
started with
expensive?
my dad first. It's like, can you repeat that? So it's expensive
Yeah,
or?
is the process like really like expensive? Like I know it takes a lot of time. Like
Uh, it's very, very pricey. I feel like my dad has spent like over $30,000 on just everything throughout the time. If, you're counting attorney lawyer costs and what you have to pay the government, because essentially you have to pay the government if you want to stay here. So it's a lot of money that went into it.
so I didn't mean to cut you off. So you said your father started first?
Yes. My dad started first. I was in high school. I think it was 16, 17. Um, when someone told him about a lawyer in LA that, can help them go through the process. So my dad got his permit. So that's kind of how he started. It's like in Spanish, like a permiso. So a
Mm-hmm.
permit to be here, permit to work.
Working, yeah.
Yeah, a working permit to be here. He started with that and slowly started gathering everything he needed, letters, recommendations, and so on. He had like a court hearing in LA my senior year in high school. My brother had to go too to kind of like testify. It was just like a whole thing. And thankfully during that day, I remember it was like in October of my senior year when he officially got it. So when they gave him the hey, you're getting it in like 30 days because it takes like 30 days for you to get it. His residency, once he got his residency in 30 days, he's like, boom, we're going free. So that's when he petitioned for me. I had just turned 18 when he petitioned for me.
Wow. That's man, I can imagine living with all that stress. Like just being a
It's
kid and then trying to grow up and trying to, live normal life and have that worry of, like over your shoulder like all the time. Did you ever apply for DACA?
I did. That's how I kind of got started. It is stressful just because we couldn't talk about it. We weren't allowed to talk about it to no one. We just couldn't share. And when DACA came out, I know my dad had just petitioned for me, but he was just like, you know what, let's do this. This might help you get something quicker. So I think it was like the first week that DACA came out. I submitted everything, and that's where my process began. So I was a DACA recipient for 2 years uh, before I was able to go through my own process of getting my green card and so on.
So in that process that it took, so it took time, it's really costly. Was there any moments where it was just like overwhelming, where it was just so stressful, where it felt like nothing was gonna happen?
Um, I think the moment where like it really affected me was I think it was going towards my second year with DECA. I remember it was like around December or something, and we got a call from our attorney um, telling us that we had a letter from the U.S. Embassy in Ciudad Juarez,
Mm-hmm.
and they sent a card that they like we don't even know how that happened. It's still kind of like a mystery. Where I had by the end of the year to show up there. So by the end of the following year, to show up there and have everything ready in order for me to get my green card. I think at that moment I was just like, what the hell? Like in my head, I was like, cool, I thought I had a little bit more time, or we had more time to gather things, or So they kind of gave us an ultimatum of either you go and leave the country and go over there, and you don't know if you're gonna come back, or you wait until you marry someone. They give you all these things, and I remember being in that office with my dad, and he was just like, no, like my daughter's not going to rely on anyone, so we'll figure something out. So I remember like just being like, oh shit, like let's see how this goes.
That's very stressful. Like I have
Yeah.
a buddy that his sister has to go back to El Salvador,
Mm-hmm.
and she has to do that same thing. She has to go to the embassy, and she has to
Yeah.
wait for them to give her the clearance or the citizenship. But they said it could be 14 months or it could be 10 years.
Yeah.
And so he's saying that she's going to do it. And she has family in LA and her kids are there and her husband. So we'll see what happens after that. But I can just imagine, like, man, you have to uproot your life and to try to
It's
come back.
so scary. It's just really scary just because I remember them telling me that when I would, once I stepped over the border, it's like, that's it. You have to depend on what the embassy is going to tell you. And, they tell you that you get an answer, like, they'll let you, like, you go, you do whatever you need to do, and you'll be back in like 5 days. My 5 days turned into 3 months.
You stayed out there for three
And
months.
yeah, I had to stay out there for 3 months because there was just like miscommunication between like what the attorney secretary sent. He didn't, because you have to pay a fine when you're applying. So on top of all of like, you have to pay your attorney, you still have to pay a fine to the government because your fine is based on the length amount of like how long you've been here. Depends on how big your fine is going to be.
Oh wow.
Um, so apparently the secretary didn't send my fine in when it was supposed to be sent. So because of that, I resulted in having to stay there until my fine was sent once again. So my parents had to pay twice for that fine.
That's
And it was a hefty amount.
that must have been. Well, I can imagine what was going through your head at the time, being in Mexico, not knowing like,
Oh,
oh, what if things are gonna ever work out? Did you have
it
family out there
was
you're staying with, or did you have to?
so I was in Ciudad Juarez with my uncle who, well, he was living in Texas at the time.
Yeah.
So my aunt's sister lived in Ciudad Juarez, so we were staying with her for the moment. And then once we found out, like, hey, we don't know how long this is going to take, my dad was actually there with me, and he stayed there with me for like 2 weeks. But I mean, he had to come back and work. He couldn't stay there the whole time. So he left, and I was alone there for a week, and it was just horrifying. Um, After they told us like, hey, it might be longer, I got sent to Jalisco, Magdalena. It's by out there by Guadalajara and stuff.
Yeah.
That's where my dad's family is from. So I got sent to strangers who I like never met, never knew, to this place where I've never been, you know. And my brother actually like took a step and he was like, you know what, I'm dropping whatever I'm doing here and I'm gonna go over there with her. So if it wasn't for my brother, like actually like just being like, hey, I'm gonna go support my sister and be there for her, I would have gone crazy.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
That's I don't even speak Spanish. Like I'm very broken at Spanish. I try, but like if I ever had be in that situation, I would not even know what first thing to do. Or I don't really know my family that lives in Mexico either.
Mm-hmm.
But thank you for sharing all that. It's very touching story, and how people don't understand how hard it is to become a citizen of this country, and the steps it takes and
Yeah.
the sacrifices your family puts. Your family put a lot of sacrifice to come out here
Mm-hmm.
and move in the middle of Nevada. There's probably nothing out there.
Nothing.
But when you lived out there in Nevada, I know that you post a lot about horses on your social media. Is that something that
Yes.
you're
So
passionate about?
yeah, so we used to live out in this ranch. Well, when I was like for like 5 years, I think it was in Kings River, Nevada, way up north, middle of nowhere, away from society, where they would brand cattle. They're like legit cowboys over there. You see these people out in the mountains just being out there for weeks at a time because that's what they do. They have to take care of all that cattle. So it's something that we kind of grow. Like we were something that we enjoyed. We liked doing all that stuff. So when we moved to California, we didn't move to the city or the town. We stayed out in the country because we couldn't, like, I couldn't live in a city. I don't know how I would react to being in town. I like being free, and so we live out here in the country, and we actually got a horse ourselves too. And riding is what we do, what we like. We were really into like the whole cowboy stuff because that's all we knew, and that's kind of something we try to follow here too.
Did you ever compete in anything with
No,
horses?
I was too scared.
What do
I
they call it?
wanted
Is
to.
it Esquarian or
Yeah, well, they do that stuff. They do the rodeo where they tie, like, the cattle, when they get off. I don't know if you've ever seen
yeah, I've seen that
the
a couple
rodeos.
times.
Yeah. And then for like little kids, they even have them like race on like the lambs and stuff. That's something I wanted to do when I
Oh,
was
nice.
younger. But my dad never let me because he was just like, no, you're gonna get hurt. But I love that stuff. That's something that I always like cherish a lot, just because it's what we grew up with. And coming here, it's like a whole different culture. Like you don't really see much of that. It's
Oh,
just really, really different.
yeah, I tell people like I'm so I consider myself still country, grew up in a little country town, but I'm not that country, like Kermit has
Yeah.
turned it used to be a farming community and it's now
Uh-huh.
basically a suburb of Fresno, like a working suburb. But my grandpa
Yeah.
was a farmer, just growing up out there, I knew things a little bit of things here and there.
Hmm.
Moving out to the city was a big adjustment for me, big time. Coming from a small place I went from Kermit to Gilroy to Hollister to Hayward to San Francisco. Like,
Wow.
moving around, just every area getting bigger and bigger as far as population wise, and learning the fast paces of life. It's
Hmm.
really different. Like when I go back home, and every time I go back home, like every other year, I get a ticket because I'm so used to driving out here. Like I
So
gotta
fun.
stop. Like the California stopped and Kerman. Like I got a ticket one time because I didn't stop at a stop sign long enough. I got a ticket for speeding through Mendota. Like I was barely even speed. I don't know. They got me like at 42 miles an hour or something. I don't know. It was just little things like that. Um,
Hmm.
just having to adjust when you get back uh, to that lifestyle again. I do miss it when I do go back, and I do miss the like this everything's slowed down. It's not like
Hmm.
everyone's not in a rush. People are more still polite out there, and will hold the door for you or say, "Well, I know a lot of people back home, so every time you go back home, you're always talking to someone or saying
Hmm.
hi here and there." Here, we live in a flat with like 4 apartments. I don't know any of
Hmm.
our neighbors, and I've lived here for a couple years. I don't even know their names.
Really?
We say hi in passing sometimes. Most of the time, we don't even talk to each other. But like, yeah, I see them, but I don't
Hmm.
know them at all. Like, we don't have issues or nothing like that, but that's just the way it is here. Like, I don't know any of our neighbors across the street. We don't know anything about. No one knows anything about anyone. And back home, I knew everyone on the block. Like, everyone around. Everyone lived next to you, around the
Hmm.
corner. It's just the way everyone grows up. It's just different. The lifestyle out
It's a
here.
whole different lifestyle out there.
Yeah, it is. But I'm starting to like it. I'm starting to become a city boy or something.
Hmm.
But I do like my roots and I do miss home a lot from time to time. You did talk about you're going to school for your master's degree in social work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, I'm getting my MSW. I'm currently on my last year. I have one more semester to go, which is really exciting. Um, I'm currently doing it with CSUN, with Southern California University with Northridge. It's all online. So for me, the transition that everybody had to deal with doing classes online didn't really affect me just because that was something I was already doing. But it has been a stressful almost 2 years.
do you recommend people going for doing a master's program? Like I worked with a lot of social workers and they do really great work, but it's a lot of investment and time going for a master's program. I've been actively looking for a master's program for myself because I know that's the next step I
Mm-hmm.
need to take to further my career and opportunities. But from what I hear from a lot of people going to or getting into master programs, it's like hectic. It's chaotic. It's like there's so much stress behind
Yeah,
it.
I have had a couple breakdowns, and I think this past year was like the worst. There's a moment where I was just like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm like, I just want to quit. Like it gets so hard, especially I think the second year, just because we're working on our like thesis project. So I think that's what just been has been overwhelming me a lot. Just with school and trying to get all these things done because people have to approve it. If it's not approved, you have to redo it again, and it's a lengthy process. But I feel like it's going to be so worth it at the end. I just chose social work because you can just do a lot with it. You can do mental health, you can work with the county, you can work at a school, you can do so much with it and still help people at the same time, which is what I want to do.
What do you have a bachelor's in?
I have a bachelor's in psychology.
Okay, so what made you want to go into that field and to get a psychology degree and also to that pushed you further to work into like helping other people?
I've always had like a large interest in mental health, and with psychology, I wanted to actually get my master's degree in abnormal psych, so like behavioral psych,
Oh,
BCBA, and so on. Um, but it was like when I started looking into the programs at state, one, it's like really competitive, and two, very time consuming. Very time consuming. And I just had just recently gotten my bachelor's degree in psych. I had like landed a good job. Well, at the time, what I considered a big girl job, right? And I had told myself like I can't do it. Like, if I, want to get paid full time and do this stuff, like it's going to be impossible. So over the time, I took like a 2 year break, and once I really wanted to go back, I was like, okay, I need to look into something. I really need to find something that's going to like call my name, basically. That's kind of how I went with it. And when I started looking into social work, I started seeing that I can do so much more than just like county work. Because I feel like when you think of social workers, you think county. You think, people who go into other people's homes and stuff like that. There's just label social workers in regards to that, but I want to focus more on the mental health aspect, and specifically kids. I want to work at a school where I can help these kids who are suffering through these things, whether it's just with their parents not being home or stuff like that, providing them counseling or even like therapeutic services.
is that something that you
I look
went
for
through growing up? Like, were your parents always working and you had to deal with growing up being at home?
I was fortunate enough to have like my mom be home all the time. She was a stay-at-home mom.
Oh, okay.
My dad, on the other hand, we hardly saw him growing up because he would always work over 80 hours in 1 week. Um, and he worked at a farm where he was basically taking over the whole farm, where he had to work everywhere. And when we moved here to California, we saw him a little more. But once we got into high school, he got a job where we would only see him on the weekends. So that was just kind of that part of like that detachment, I guess, he had with us, where he wasn't always there for us, even though he was there providing for us, but he wasn't really there for us.
That, that's a
Is
struggle
that?
like a lot of people face, and I don't know if it's like the Latino culture, Mexican culture, but
Mm-hmm.
it's something that a lot of men take pride in is they go and provide and they work all these insane
Yeah.
hours and they don't spend a lot of time with the family, um, but they're out there, they're doing what they got to do. And I know my father is
Mm-hmm.
the same way. He works insane days. He does heating and air in the Central Valley, which is busy all the time. It's so hot there.
Yeah.
But there's certain times out of the year where he works every single day and he's working 12-hour days, and there's no letdown to it. And you see how
Mm-hmm.
hard our families work, and trying to they instill upon us, and we get those work ethic as well. But I do appreciate what you're trying to do with your career. You're trying to help other people that need that support, and I think you're probably in the best position to do that, especially as a social worker. You will be able to work in different areas, whatever it might be,
Mm-hmm.
working with children, working with adults. um, as far as working with children, I remember we both worked at what was it, Teaching Fellows.
Yeah.
I used to love that job. I remember I didn't work there too long. I think I did it for like maybe a year. I worked at the Goldenrod location, but I missed that job. Sometimes just thinking about working with kids and how
Yeah.
that helped me understand that, I realized I rather work with adults. Kids are really difficult for me. I can't. I'm not really good with kids. Um, but it was a fun experience, and that job did teach a lot. And moving from there, uh, working with adults now, working with adult
Mm-hmm.
population. I work with um, incarceration population, or
Mm-hmm.
people leaving jails. I work with them,
Probation.
yeah, a lot of people on
Mm-hmm.
probation. Work with a lot of people that are homeless, individuals that are
Mm-hmm.
homeless, individuals that are dealing with substance abuse. So being in that, working with people from that don't have really good backgrounds, who work with people that are don't have are not in a good state of mind either, or living
Mm-hmm.
with people that have very traumatic past. And so, what that has taught me or has showed me is um, learning how to have empathy, learning how to um, calm situations, learning how
Mm-hmm.
to be able to be someone they look up to. And I never thought I would be that person people could look up to. But the people would listen to me. I'm like, oh, why are you listening? Like sometimes I'm like, why you listen to me? Like I don't understand why you know why you take
Yeah.
my advice. But that has pushed me to want to get my master's degree in like therapy. I really do like
Mm-hmm.
talking to people. I wanted to get that type of degree, like um, I don't know what it's. I think it's called not a not an MSW. That's what you're doing. The
MFT.
What is it called?
MFT.
Yeah, marriage family therapist. That's what I was looking
Yeah.
for. That's what I wanted to do. Like I wanted to do like the MFT,
Mm-hmm.
like a marriage family therapist to get licensed throughout the state. But now that I'm starting to think about it, I don't know if I want to go that route anymore. Um, I know a lot of MFTs now. I didn't before,
Mm-hmm.
and I realize they're hustling really hard. They have their private practice. They might work for
Yeah.
someone else, and they're also teaching classes. I'm like, that sounds fun right now, but I don't have any children. I just have my girlfriend and stuff. But what
Yeah.
happens if I have a family later on? Like, I don't want to be working like crazy amount of time and not being able to balance that work life.
Mm-hmm.
It's very stressful. Is that something that you think about a lot too?
I did. That's why when I was going into it, I worked with like the county for so long with DSS. So I saw a lot of that. I saw a lot of the social workers like working countless hours and putting so much time traveling a lot from here to there because the kids need them. Um, but I kind of want to just go into like the school route. Work in schools. Work with the kids at I mean, I feel like you're always gonna have like a side hustle, regardless of like where you're working in. So even like with that, I'm like, oh, that will be fine. Like I understand, it doesn't make the best amount of money, but it will help with like whatever I want to do. Because at the end, I just want to be there to provide those services. And I know it sounds very like cliche because a lot of social workers say that I'm just there to help people, but it is like it's so rewarding being there to help someone else going through like strugglesome situation where the fact that you're listening helps them a lot. Sometimes like we were talking about it earlier, we don't really talk to a lot of people because either we're afraid to tell them what's going on, and that's a lot of the people that we work with the struggle with talking to someone, letting it out, and having even someone try to understand them. And I've told like a lot of my clients and even like the kids that I'm currently working with, it's just like maybe I don't know exactly what you're going through, maybe I've never been there in that situation, but I'm here to listen. I'm just here to hear you out and I'm here to try to understand what it is that you're going through. And I feel like that makes a big impact on a lot of these, people that are struggling with things.
That's the hardest thing is people don't realize one of the best tools and you can learn is how to listen, how to actively listen to
Mm-hmm.
someone. And it's
Yes.
very difficult to actively listen to someone. People could speak and they could talk and do all that, but to actually listen to
Yeah.
someone, to hear someone on what they're trying to
That
talk
takes a
about,
lot.
it takes a long time to learn how to do as well. I thought I was good at it, and then I realized I didn't know how to do it well, like
Yeah.
properly. I when I first started, when I was a counselor, when I first started, I would cut people off all the time. I do it from time to time now, and I try to get better at that. But that was one thing I struggled at because I always wanted to like get a point
Mm-hmm.
across, cut them off there and talk. And I realized over time with trial and error is I'm doing a disservice to them. I need to listen,
Mm-hmm.
because maybe they're gonna tell me what they really want rather than me trying to pry it out of them with question after question. Like I'm interrogating them, like I'm not, I'm not interrogating them. I'm trying to listen to them to see what's going on. How can I better
Mm-hmm.
suit them? How can I better help them? What tools can I utilize to make sure that they're properly cared for or they're able to be successful? And that was a really hard thing for me to learn. I'm still trying to get better at it all the time, but it's not something that you learn in school either. You don't really get
Mm-mm.
taught that. You don't really get taught how to listen and how to properly talk to someone. And that's
It's a lot of
yeah.
practice, and I was in that similar situation. I started working in what I used to do when I was like 23. I was young. I had no idea, like how to go about things. And I think over the years I have grown in that aspect. I mean, I feel like I'm good at what I do, but I'm not like the best. I feel like I still need more to learn. I still need to learn more things. Because like similarly like you, I think I've learned how to listen at times, where sometimes silence is louder than anything. But at the same time, I just want answers. I'm like, okay, how can I help you? What else can I do? You know. But that's what it is. Communication is just the key with a lot of individuals, and we forget that communication is what's going to help us with whatever we're going to be doing.
One thing that I've learned too as well is the burnout and
Oh yeah.
becoming losing that empathy. I'm not saying I don't know how to put it right. It's not that you lose empathy, it's that you just stop caring as much as you did when you started. And it's not that you become a horrible person, it's that when you try to do the same thing and you're trying to help someone over and over again and they tell you like, "Oh, I'm going to do it this time," and they don't do it, it's
It's
really
strenuous.
it's hard work, and it's something that you have to be able to identify and step back, and learning how to step back
Mm-hmm.
and allow them to put in the work as well. Because when I first started in my field, I wanted to try to do everything for them and realize it
Yeah.
doesn't work that way. Because if they don't put in that work, or if they're not willing to do it, it will burn you out. And I've been
Mm-hmm.
burnt out. Like when I worked in the substance abuse field, my first after my first year of being a counselor, I wanted out of the field. I was like, I don't want to do this no more. This is horrible. Like I've fresh out of college, I got into that field. I have family with addiction history, so that's how I knew about it. And I became a methadone counselor for opioids,
Wow.
and so
Okay.
I was doing that, and I was taking in so much. I was learning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It was it was it was really interesting hearing the stories, and I had a really good time, and I enjoyed it. But at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, the workload, I was not used to it. Like that was my real like big boy job. Like that was my first time getting somewhere
Yeah.
where I had a lot more responsibilities, and you're dealing with people's lives. And so you could take on a lot. You could take on someone else's trauma, like secondhand trauma. You could take it
Oh
on,
yeah.
and I didn't know that at the time. And I was barely, I might have been like 25 or 24
Mm-hmm.
years old at the time. I'm 28 now, about to be 29. So that was a little bit ago. And my first year, I remember when I quit and I was looking for another job, I wanted to work with like homeless youth. I still wanted to work
Mm-hmm.
helping people, but I did not want to be in the substance abuse field at all. I was burnt out. I was like, I don't know, I can never do this again. And then that job that I was going to work with homeless youth, something happened, it fell through, and I ended up working at another substance abuse, like a treatment center. But I went from
Yeah.
outpatient to inpatient, and it just changed
Mm-hmm.
my perception on it. And I got to start as a case manager and went back to a counselor, but I learned a lot more, like the right way. And you learn what causes burnout. You learn how to
Mm-hmm.
step back and just the process. We're still young in our field, and we're still have a
Yeah.
lot to grow. And there's going to be challenging times, and there's going to be times where you're just going to be like, I don't know if I could do this anymore. I don't know if I could, whatever it might be. But then that's when we go to teach. I can see you being a teacher
Mm-hmm.
one day.
I love doing that. I used to facilitate classes, so I would facilitate like parenting classes, and there's like this whole curriculum we had to follow. I was so scared going into that. I'm like, oh my god, I can't do that. Like, how am I gonna talk to people? Like, especially a group. Like, I'm barely working with individuals. How am I gonna do that? Um, as I started doing it, it became something I preferred. I preferred like doing class sessions. I prefer doing like a group of people because there's so much going on. I think I
Yeah.
love that challenge of like, okay, what's gonna happen to it? Is so and so gonna speak out? Is so and so gonna be mad about it? It's just such a joy. I loved it for as long as I did it, but I always tell my boyfriend, you know what? Maybe like after like I do a couple of years of like school social work and stuff, I'll become a professor. Like I don't mind that. Like I don't mind teaching kids all these things. Like I can do that.
Do it.
It's it's just something that's just like okay, I don't think it'll be too bad to go for it. Just become a professor.
Well, that's how I started too. So I started doing like individual, and where I worked at the outpatient. Then when I went
Uh-huh.
inpatient, they had groups there, and I had to run groups, and I never done that before. The only other time I did that is when I did teaching fellows. And
Yeah,
that's how
and
it taught
it's
me
different with
groups.
kids.
Oh, big time difference. Like, but the craziest thing though, like the adults, they acted like kids. Like the ones I worked with, they
Yeah.
acted like children, and so it kind of helped me out a lot. Like having command, like learning how to have command and presence in
Mm-hmm.
the room, learning how to people respect you, learning how to because they acted like kids. They acted like high schoolers. They acted like children. They would be talking here and
Yep.
there. You had to learn how to like calm the situation
Calm them
down
down.
and learn how to get them to focus. And when I left this past job, that's one area I do miss is teaching those
Mhm.
groups because I got really good at the end. I started really having that presence.
Mhm.
You could see people learning. You can see people, their wheels spinning, thinking about.
Yeah.
I like to have people think, especially when I was running those type of groups, and I would love to teach one day, but I need to get a
It
lot more
brings
experience.
joy. I think
Yeah.
it brings just so much joy and satisfaction of like, oh my god, they're getting something out of what I'm saying. Like, oh Jesus, like they are grasping what I'm saying.
Would you want to teach college level? That's where you're,
Yeah,
well, for sure.
heck
Yeah.
yeah. I think that's what I would do. I think when I went from that transition of like working with like little kids, I was in that same situation where I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, oh, they're too much to handle. And then when I started working with adults, I'm like, oh my god, they're the same thing,
Oh yeah.
maybe even worse at times. Because these people actually like, talk back to you and tell you how it is.
And
Like
they're
I had a
adults, they should know better.
exactly, and then with like the group that we would work with, like the population, I a lot of my clients had mental health, issues, things going on. So I had a client one time had like a manic episode and she tried to fight me. And I was just like,
Oh
okay,
wow.
oh no, let's see how we do this. And I think that's kind of what was just like, this is kind of like cool, it's something new, even though someone's trying to fight you, but it's just something different. And after all that, I think after these past couple of years, I'm like, okay, I need a change. I need something different. And as I'm doing my internship at one of the school districts out here, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I can do like teens. And now that I've been working with teens, I'm just like, wow, this is just so cool. Because before it was just like little kids and then all the way to adults. And now I'm working at that teen level. And you realize that I feel like they're the ones that need most help at that age. Although, the little ones are still growing, the teens sometimes feel like they don't have a voice.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I'm just like, I think I'm going to stay there for a while. That's something I'm kind of looking into a lot.
That's what it takes. It takes trial and error to find out what you really like. I
Yeah.
understand that working with kids, I didn't want to work with kids anymore after I was done with that. Working with
Yeah.
adults, I do like working with adults. I
Mhm.
haven't worked with primarily teenage a lot. I did that in college. We did like a
Yeah.
university role model thing where I went to in Hayward. They have a really bad public school system there. Like their
Mhm.
high schools are really really bad. But going in there and like talking to those kids, like they're great kids. It was just like the school system, like the whatever there, they didn't have it down. They were messing up
Yeah.
somewhere. It was one of those schools where they had a police presence all the time, where the police were like parked there. They like sat in the hallways. Like it was one of that type of setting. It was really bad. Like
Oh, yeah.
it was really shitty. And like I felt bad for the kids. I was like, man, you guys have to see this all the time, knowing that you guys are getting policed and controlled all the time. And
Mhm.
I mean, they but they were fighting a lot. Everything was happening. There was a lot of commotion going on all the time. I remember we would go there a couple times a week, and every time I went, something was popping off. But I worked with a couple groups. One of the groups I worked with
Mhm.
was a lot of kids like that just moved to the United States, but they were from all
Mhm.
over. They're from the Philippines, Mexico, China, all kinds. So
Oh, okay.
we had a very big international group of students that just
Mhm.
moved to the United States, and they were trying to apply for college for the first time, or they were all applying to college for the first time and try to learn how to do financial aid if they're qualified for it. And being
Mhm.
able to help them with that was really that really sparked a lot in me to to focus on maybe I can help people, maybe I can counsel people. That was like kind of one of my first jobs counseling others, and that was a good stepping stone for me. I
Yeah.
got my degree in criminal justice, like with it was corrections and community
Oh.
alternatives. I wanted to be a probation
Uh-huh.
officer. I tried. I didn't pass like my
Just no.
backgrounds. I didn't. I
Mhm.
took a lot of tests. Like you have to apply and you have to take tests. I never got accepted,
Yeah.
and so like I was kind of discouraged for a long time. I was like, why did I even go to school? Why didn't I even do that? But now the field I
Mhm.
work in, I work with a lot of people that are formerly incarcerated, that are on probation. So I'm not actually using my degree, but in a different way, and I like the way I went. And I do appreciate like the struggles I had and everything like that to get me to the place I am now, and understanding that life changes. And when I was in high school, I never thought I'd even go to school. I never even thought I'll go to college. I never even thought of, life happens, things change, and you find yourself. You grow up, basically.
Mm-hmm.
You grow up, you find out what you really want to do in life. Um, I want to move on towards like the end of uh, what I usually do with my guests is I ask them a couple questions about themselves, and
Okay.
I just want to
Okay.
say thank you again for coming on, and I appreciate it. It's been really interesting, fun, and thank you for sharing, stories, especially about you coming to the United States, growing up here, the
Mm-hmm.
hardship that you had to go through. What I want to ask you, the first one is, who's your biggest influence in your life? Um, Now, your professional life with your work and career, but also your life for fitness. Like, who's your biggest influence for your powerlifting and stuff like that?
So professional and just life in general, my dad. My dad has always been like such an inspiration for me. Just because I know he doesn't give up, and I think that's something like he put upon myself. Where don't give up, keep going. Like if someone can do it, you can do it even better. I aspire to be like him one day. Just keep going, find something new. And I mean, he's nearly 50, like 48, and he still has so many goals that he wants to achieve. And I think that's where I want to be in life. I know we were talking about all that stuff that we want to do, and that's where I want to be someone that's never going to stop wanting something new, a new challenge, where it's just like, okay, you know what, we finished this, I tried this, now let's try something else that's going to be a bigger challenge. So that's who I aspire, and someone who helps me a lot. And just in fitness and general, I have a lot. I have a couple of friends that actually like live. Sophia is one of them. She's out in New York. She does great. I always tell her I aspire to be like her one day. Petite girl. And she's like weighs like 115, and this girl can lift so heavy. For her weight. Oh God, I want to be like her. I always tell her she's my idol in just powerlifting.
Wow. So what are your personal best lifts?
Currently my deadlift is like my favorite one. Um, my deadlift I think is at 305 around there. I just currently achieved that this past year. Super excited about that. My squat once again just recently, I think a couple weeks ago, 225, and I've been working on that for like the longest time ever. I'm horrible with my squats. I'm not proportioned right. I don't know if I was even meant to powerlift because I have really long femurs and a super short torso. So it makes it difficult when you're trying to get like that good form and stuff. It's just so hard when it comes to like squatting and deadlifting, and being able to get there, it was just exciting for me, just because I've been chasing that for so long.
I did see that. Yeah, I know you posted that, and I was like, wow, I
Mm-hmm.
can't do that myself personally. I remember I was trying to get to that point. That's a lot of weight. A lot of people don't understand. That's like they probably think, oh, that's easy. No, go underneath the barbell and try it.
No,
Your body is
it's
different. Like it,
heavy.
yeah.
Yeah, it's heavyweight. I've realized that I'm so much stronger, like on deadlifts. I guess my back is just able to take more than squatting. And just with bench, that has been another journey of mine, just because I never benched before. Um, I started benching, I think, when I first started powerlifting, is when I began to bench. So being able to do, I think, like 105 or 110, that has been great. Even though it's a little bit of weight, but it's a lot for me.
So, for as far as your deadlifts, do you do conventional or do you do sumo deadlifts?
I started with conventional, and then I moved on to what is sumo right now. So conventional was always my favorite because it was easier. Well, easier at the time when I started doing it. And now that I've been doing sumo, it was a challenge. Once again, my legs are like really long.
Mm-hmm.
So trying to like position myself and trying to figure things out has been just difficult. But that's a challenge that I like, being able to try to perfect it at one point.
What is the feeling like when you get the weight off the ground and you get into the position,
Oh,
into the lock position?
amazing. Oh my God. Just getting it up there is still so strugglesome. So actually like locking out, like once you're there, oh, it's a bliss. It's such a bliss.
So what is the approach for you when you're approaching the bar and when you're about to do a deadlift? What is the approach
Uh-huh.
for you? How do you get set up? What's going through your mind at that time? Are you listening to
I
music?
listen.
What's going on?
Yeah, actually, I'm listening to music at the time. I always have to have music on. I know a lot of people tend to listen to like hardcore music, like rock or rap or something. I have to listen to like really calming music in order to. Sorry, my eye got really watery. In order to relax me. Um, I know recently I like learned to just like calm myself down because I overthink things a lot. Where I'm just like, oh, I'm not gonna get it. I'm not gonna get it, and I have to like really just let it all out. Especially like with deadlifts, I always have to be like, okay, you know what? It's gonna be okay. I have like this self talk in my like I have to talk to myself. I'm just like, it's gonna be fine. You got this. You know, you've done near this. I try to give my own self a pep talk and just like take my deep breaths. And once I go in, it's just like, all right, let's do it, and go all in. It's yeah, especially if people are watching. I think that's what makes me even more nervous. I'm like, I have to get it because someone's watching me.
Do you go boutless or do you use a bout?
No, I have to use a belt, just for my own safety, and it helps me just with bracing. So I do use a belt. I personalized my own belt like the first year I started lifting.
And so what I want to ask you next is what advice do you have for other women that are thinking about powerlifting but they hear
Mm-hmm.
those old cliches like, "Oh, I don't want to gain all the muscle. I don't want to wait like it's going to make my body look weird," or there's a lot of things that are being said about women that take off
There
like lifting heavy weights.
there is so much. I think that's something that's made my even lifting journey like difficult just because you hear a lot of this. It's like muscle is not nice, muscle is ugly, or like I don't want to be bulky like a guy. Uh, we all have it. I mean, it develops whether you're trying to like tone your body. I guess that's what a lot of people go for too. We all have it. It's meant to be there. Everything I feel like muscle is beautiful. I mean, muscle is great, and just going into lifting, it you learn to love it once it becomes. I think it has to become like a routine, and then just something. It's just something you learn to enjoy. I think that if we base everything off of like our looks, we're never gonna get anywhere. But it's not bad. Muscle is great. Muscle helps you feel stronger. I think if that's for me personally, I love how it makes me feel stronger, and it's taken me a while to realize that. Even sometimes now I struggle with it, but it's okay. I always tell girls it's okay. Don't worry about it. It'll be fine. Like don't overthink it.
So, how was it for you getting a fitness coach? How did that change
Uh,
your fitness journey?
well, I think it helped me a lot just because my current coach is my boyfriend. So he powerlifted and did a couple competitions in his time, and I think that's where we bump heads. I always tell him, I'm like, when you're my coach, I like bump heads with him a lot, just because sometimes I'm just like, okay, why the hell didn't I get this,
Was he
or
your
what's
boyfriend
going
before
on?
he started coaching you?
Was no, he wasn't. He actually became my boyfriend throughout my
So
lifting.
so that's how you guys
Yeah,
met through that journey like,
yeah.
oh wow.
So I mean, we went to school together, but I don't. We really didn't talk in high school. And when he offered just to be my coach, I was like, okay, cool. You know, let's do this. Let's see how this goes. And I knew he had been like powerlifting for quite a while. He had competed in like LA, Southern California, and stuff. He had his own coach too. He's one of like I Joey is like a great coach just with a lot of people here in the U.S. too, and even internationally. But so he was coached by him, and so when he started coaching me, it was weird just because I wasn't used to someone telling me what to do or how to do things, but it did help a lot. I think I was like, okay, am I doing this right? How am I supposed to do this? He helped me a lot with my technique, and till this day, he's still helping me a lot with that technique. But we do clash a lot when he's giving me like coaching advice, or like when I feel like I'm doing something right, and he's like, no, you need to fix it. So that's when we do clash. I always tell him I fight a lot with him when he's my coach, not my boyfriend.
Is it hard to balance that, like coach and boyfriend, or it's just something that's like a easy transition? Like it's not. You guys still have,
Uh-huh.
still like
Like
that.
outside the gym?
Well, having that coach setting, still being
Mm-hmm.
able to help you in a way where he's able to be constructive and be critical and actually help you with technique, because of what coaches are having to do, and then also having to
Yeah.
maintain that role of being your boyfriend and not being like too much, because you don't want you to get mad at him, stuff like that. I can imagine it'd probably be hard if I had to like coach my girlfriend. Obviously I don't know how to do anything. I don't know, like I'm not
Yeah.
that good at stuff, but like if I had a coach or how to do things, I don't think I would be good at it because of that
I
dynamic
feel
we have.
so bad for him sometimes because I snap. I have a temper. And I feel bad for him because, excuse me, when we're doing something or he's telling me to fix something, like I'll be like, I'm trying my best. Like, what do you expect? Or I'm really hard on myself too. Like, if I don't get a lift, I've had moments where I'm just like, oh, I don't. I'll cry of anger. Like if I don't get that down, and I mean, as a coach, he's just like, well, we gotta do it next time. But as a boyfriend, he has to be there for me. So I've asked him before. I'm just like, how do you do it? I don't even know how he does it sometimes. To try to balance those things. I mean, for myself, I know like at the gym, he's my coach, and outside, he's just my boyfriend. Well, I personally feel like it's like that for me, where I have like whatever coaching or whatever needs to be done with my lifting will be done at the gym, and then we can like everything else, and it's just what we talk about after. But it was difficult, I think, at the beginning, and I feel like he still struggles sometimes. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do this lift. Can you just change it to something else? And he has a couple other kids that he coaches, and they're just like, it's you're lucky that you're his girlfriend, and he changes things for you. But I always have to tell him, you know what, if you're gonna put it on there for me, just do it, even though I'm probably gonna like nag about it later. But go for it.
So I do have to ask this question. I know my girlfriend, she kind of struggles sometimes, but she's got better
Mm-hmm.
with helping me with my anxiety. At
Mm-hmm.
first, she didn't know how to deal with it. She would get mad when, but it's not her fault. But she would get mad, like like the situation where I told you where I got off the bus because
Yeah.
I felt really anxiety. She got really pissed because she was like, "We need to be on. That's our bus. Like we need to be on that, or else we're gonna have to wait for another one. What are
Yeah.
you doing?" But she didn't understand what I was dealing with. She didn't. She don't deal with anxiety like the way we deal with anxiety. And
Mm-hmm.
so she knows when it's happening. She's able to calm. She's able to give me that
Mm-hmm.
calming presence. She doesn't like get angry at me for having anxiety. She understands like how to deal with it, and I've been able to talk with her, so that's helped me
Yeah.
out a lot. How does your boyfriend help you out with your anxiety? And is that something that you had to learn how to do over time, or do you guys talk about it?
We've learned to talk about it. I'm the type of person where I hold things in, and like whatever I'm thinking, I'm just like I'll just keep it to myself because I don't want to make things worse. But I've learned to communicate more with him. He's so understanding. I appreciate it so much, just because when I'm just letting it out to him, he will like truly. I feel like he's truly there for me. And like I have those random anxiety attacks out of nowhere, and I feel like I get it a lot in the evening,
Hmm.
like later in the days, just like when it hits me, and I'll let him know, like be like, hey, this is happening right now, like I'm feeling really anxious, and he is always been there for me. So he has been helping me a lot. I don't know if you know I've asked him if it's hard on him, and I feel like it's hard on someone else. When you have a significant other that is going through something. But I always try to talk to him and communicate with him and let him know, like, hey, you let me know too how you're feeling. You let me know what's going on too. And that has helped us, a lot with dealing with my anxiety.
Well, that's great. It's when I say like my girlfriend has learned, this has been something for years that she's had to learn
Yeah.
how. 'Cause I've been with her for a long time, so like this is something that I've been dealing for a long like for years with, and it took her a while to learn how to to work with me with it. And I'm telling her, well, no, this is what I need, or can you give me space with this and that, and
Mm-hmm.
just that communication takes time, and it's not gonna happen
It
overnight.
does.
And so people that are in relationships have to learn that it's like communication is the key, and learning how to talk in a way where you both
Mm-hmm.
could help each other, and not go for the quick answers, because quick answers never
Yeah.
really fix anything. especially when you're dealing with something you can't see, like anxiety. You can't see it. Someone
Mhm.
could look normal, but the inside they could be freaking out, try to hold
Oh
themselves
yeah.
together.
Yeah.
And so that's the worst part, is like, how do you help something that you don't know it's there, and being okay with it. And I like I said last time, I know I keep saying this, I appreciate you so much for coming on and sharing your stories,
Yeah.
and I
Thank
want to thank you.
you.
The last thing I want to ask you, before we end the podcast, is,
Mhm.
when someone thinks of you, what do you want them to think or to know about you? When someone, they think about Luz, like,
Mhm.
what comes to your mind? Like, what do you want them to know? What do
Oh
you
my
want them
God.
to think or to feel about you?
Oh, that's really hard. I've never thought about that before. Um, I feel like I want them to think that they can just, you know, talk to me, or, that I hope I'm like genuine with them. I think I am. But oh, they think of me like as a friend, or as an individual, just as a person.
So when someone comes across, you in
Mhm.
general, all right, people have perceptions of who you are by the
Mhm.
way you look or by the way you dress or whatever it might be. But
Yeah.
when someone comes across you in a professional setting, you have your professional manner, right? You go out and you talk
Oh
and
yeah, of
you
course.
present. People take you serious. But what I'm trying to get at is, when people see you, they know of you, or they see you on social media, right? They see you as
Mhm.
this woman out there, powerlifting, uh, lifting two plates, or squatting two plates, or someone that's doing amazing feats that not a lot of
Yeah.
women are doing, or someone that hears about you through a podcast. What do you want them to know about you?
I want them to know that, as an individual, I guess I'm very strong, and that I've overcome a lot of stuff. Just, when they see of me, I feel like we have just a certain perception of what we see online, and that's just like a whole other thing, because I feel like we put a whole other world there. But I think just knowing or seeing that Luz herself, me, um, is just someone who's learned to be strong, and gone forth to overcome challenges, and overcome obstacles, and continues to do that, because I feel like we always have a challenge in our life, and we're always going to have something going on, but that never gives up, and has that perseverance, and has become resilient because of everything that has occurred. I think that can answer that question
That was
the best
wonderful.
that I can.
That was great. That was great. Hopefully one day I'll be able to squat two plates, and I'll be able to put that video out there. I'm gonna be chasing it. I'm trying to get back into the powerlifting. You inspired me to start doing that. So I think I'm gonna try to get
Yeah, I know.
get it going. I just need a coach.
Whenever you're
I
in
need a
town.
coach. That's what it is. Yeah, I've been to Iron Fit a couple times in the past, and
Hmm.
right now with COVID and everything, I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff in place. But once everything starts clearing up and they do the guest pass, you can come and definitely
Go ahead.
show love to the the small businesses in the community that are definitely needed at this time. And I know that's a great place. I know a lot of people from our community that go there. I know it's a really good gym. The people that run it there, they put a lot of effort,
Hmm.
energy into it, and I see it on social media how much they really care about the fitness community and what they're trying to give back, to the people. And
Hmm.
that's a great place. And I'm glad that you guys have a local gym there where you could go out and do your powerlifting and have a good time and build the community around it. So that being said, thank you, and
No,
I
thank you
appreciate
for
it.
having me on here. It was
Yeah.
a great experience, and actually really nice to talk to someone I haven't talked to in years, or seen in such a long time, right? Like you said, we see each other on social media, but this is just really neat, and I applaud you for having your podcast, and trying to have getting people be heard on everything that's going on, and what they're going through, and different things that they have too.
Uh, Thank you so much. So hopefully you listen to it and you really appreciate, you like it, and hopefully I'm able to show people who you are, and people
Thank
could
you.
listen to the podcast